We begin with the rendezvous between U.S. President Joe Biden, the Democratic presidential hopeful Kamala Harris, and senior national security personnel who met as fears of a possible Iranian retaliatory attack on Israel grows. President Biden said he had been briefed on preparations to support Israel should it be attacked, while Secretary of State Antony Blinken gives an assurance that officials are working relentlessly to prevent an escalation. Tensions have risen over the last week following the assassination of Hamas political leader Ismail, for which Iran has blamed Israel and vowed severe retaliation. Israel has not claimed responsibility for the assassination as yet. Meanwhile, United States officials say at least 5 U.S. personnel have been injured in an attack against a military base in Iraq in what Iraq's military called a reckless action against its bases. The killing comes amid rising tensions in the Middle East following last week's killings of senior members of Hamas and Hezbollah. According to Iraqi authorities, 2 Katyusha rockets were fired at the Al-Assad airbase in western Iraq on Monday, and the projectiles fell inside the military base. It's unclear whether the attack was linked to threats by Iran to retaliate over the killings of the Hamas leader. However, the White House noted that U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris had been briefed on the latest attack. In the meantime, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is urging all parties to stop any form of escalation in the Middle East. He was speaking after a meeting with Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong. Mr. Blinken highlighted the importance of a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and the need for all parties involved to make the right choices in order to end the war.
Escalation is not in anyone's interest. We are engaged in intense diplomacy, pretty much round the clock, with a very simple message. All parties must refrain from escalation. All parties must take steps to ease tensions. Escalation is not in anyone's interests. It will only lead to more conflict, more violence, more insecurity. It's also critical that we break this cycle by reaching a ceasefire in Gaza. That in turn will unlock possibilities for more enduring calm, not only in Gaza itself, but in other areas where the conflict could spread. So for the United States, for many other countries, both in the region and beyond, this is our focus. And what it comes down to really is all parties finding ways to come to an agreement, not look for reasons to delay or to say no. It is urgent that all parties make the right choices in the hours and days ahead. Go over the extraordinarily broad and deep agenda that joins Australia and the United States together.
In the meantime, Israel and Hezbollah are trading strikes on each other, with the Israeli Defense Forces saying it carried out an airstrike against what it said was a military structure used by Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. The Lebanese Health Ministry says they've counted 4 bodies who were killed in the strike in a house some 30 kilometers from the Israeli border. According to officials, the deceased were Hezbollah fighters. In a retaliatory response, the group launched drone attacks on towns in northern Israel, injuring 2 people. Elsewhere, an intense Israeli raid is ongoing in the occupied West Bank city of Jenin. A Gaza Health Ministry officials say at least 4 Palestinians have been killed. Medics also say 4 others were killed after a night of violent clashes near Tubas, close to the border with Jordan. According to the Israeli military, it conducted 2 separate airstrikes in the West Bank, hitting armed militants, but gave no further details. And many countries, including the US and UK, have been advising their citizens to leave Lebanon, from where they fear Hezbollah could play a role in any retaliatory response. South Korea, which is the latest country to issue a travel advisory, has strongly advised its nationals in Lebanon and Israel to leave as soon as possible. South Korea's foreign ministry said in a statement The government will issue a ban on its citizens traveling to border areas of Israel and Lebanon starting from Wednesday. Japan's foreign ministry has also issued a travel alert urging its citizens not to visit Israel, citing rising tensions in the Middle East. And a United Nations investigation has found that 9 staff members from its main agency for Palestinian humanitarian relief may have been involved in the October 7th Hamas attack. The agency has 14,000 staff members in Gaza. According to the UN Deputy Spokesman Farhan Haq, the deployments of the employees involved in the October 7th attack will be terminated in the interest of the agency.
Evidence was obtained. The Office of Internal Oversight Services has completed its investigation into 19 area staff members of the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, regarding allegations of their involvement in the armed attacks of the 7th of October 2023 in southern Israel. OIOS made findings in relation to each of the 19 UNRWA staff members alleged to have been involved in the attacks. In one case, no evidence was obtained by OIOS to support the allegations of the staff members' involvement, while in 9 other cases, the evidence obtained by OIOS was insufficient to support the staff members' involvement. With respect to these 10 cases, appropriate measures will be taken in due course in conformity with UNRWA regulations and rules. In respect of the remaining 9 cases, the evidence obtained by OIOS indicated that the UNRWA staff members may have been involved in the armed attacks of the 7th of October 2023. The employment of these individuals will be terminated in the interests of the agency. Now, we have found out of those 19 that in 10 cases there's either no information or insufficient information to support the allegations of their involvement in the October 7th attacks. The 9 for whom there is sufficient information will be terminated, and that of course includes some who had been terminated earlier as in the immediate aftermath of the reporting. The OIOS investigation involved the following: visits to Israel for discussions with Israeli officials and to receive and review information held by Israeli authorities. Visits to Amman to obtain and review information held by UNRWA relevant to the investigation, including on UNRWA staff and on UNRWA operations. Review of information and communications technology data, including email records and information on UNRWA vehicles. Review of information received from various other sources, including that released through the media and other public sources. And communications with several member states to obtain any additional information relevant to the investigation.
VOA correspondent Amy Gutman joins us now from Tel Aviv. Amy, great to see you today.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Right. So first, how are residents in Tel Aviv unraveling all that has been happening and the soaring tensions in the Middle East?
Tel Avivians are kind of like the New Yorkers of Israel. They're a tough-talking crowd, and they have to be. It's the biggest city in Israel. So it's been a mixed response here. Many have said that we are in an unprecedented time, even for Israel. This is an unprecedented threat in terms of scale and size and the number of actors in the region who are hoping to initiate retaliatory attacks on Israel, and the fact that they've mentioned Tel Aviv specifically, which crosses a red line that is typically never been crossed, although we did see a Houthi drone land in Tel Aviv some weeks ago. So I think Tel Avivians are feeling more vulnerable than ever before. On the other hand, there are many who say that they're just going to stock up on food and water and carry on as normal.
And, you know, Israel has not claimed any sort of responsibility for the assassination of the Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran last week, but seems to be bracing up for an expected Iranian response to the killing. Is there something many don't know?
I don't think there's something that many don't know. I think this is an attempt to de-escalate the situation in terms of optics and subtle diplomacy. So were Israel to claim responsibility for this assassination, it would bring even more embarrassment and humiliation to the Iranian regime. I think Netanyahu and his ministers feel that there's been enough damage that in their eyes was necessary and critical to reducing further violence in Israel and attacks on Israel. They don't need to rub it in, to be very colloquial about it. So, in fact, Netanyahu came out very quickly asking ministers not to discuss this assassination, not even to comment. The fact that there's been no deniability from Israel, I think, is quite revealing. And also, the more we've learned about the method of the assassination reveals that this is a classic Mossad-style operation, as it would be of CIA and other intelligence services around the world.
And the United States, on the other hand, held a security meeting over fears of a possible Iranian attack on Israel. How are other Israeli allies planning to aid the country?
This has been an interesting one this time. Certainly back in April, when Iran retaliated against Israel, we had many more vocal actors and allies, both in the region and outside the region in the G7. It's been a different story this time, I think, because Iran has been very loud and aggressive and very clear in its aims to hold accountable any allies that would step in and intercept on Israel's behalf. So that changes the dynamic considerably. And I think what we're seeing is a lot more quiet behind the scenes support and arrangements being made, accords being made between allies, particularly between G7 countries, US, UK, France, potentially Germany, and less outward support being expressed. In terms of Arab nations, that's also been interesting. We did have outward support from Jordan and Saudi Arabia here in Israel in April, whereas this time we did hear just yesterday and today that Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia would not be supporting Israel in the event of an attack from Iran. On the other hand, they are not supporting Iran. So this is a critical difference. It's not so subtle, in fact. Each of these three countries has come out saying that they intend to remain neutral. So they don't want to be a target from either side. But equally, they've each come out and said they will not allow their airspace to host foreign aircraft. So this means that if there is foreign aircraft from either side, they will intercept. And this is more important from the Iran side because Iran is really looking to drum up support. Other countries that have been that came together with Israel to restore ties in the Abraham Accords, like the UAE and Bahrain, have been largely quiet outwardly. I'm sure that's not the case privately behind closed doors. And to be honest, we even had a remarkable development in the last 24 hours, which is that we understand Russian President Vladimir Putin has spoken to Iranian officials, and has asked them to please refrain from harming Israeli citizens and targeting residential and civilian areas. So that indicates that Russia may be arming Iran, but it is not looking to go to war with Israel either.
And many wonder also, Amy, if the tensions between Israel, Iran, and Lebanon has sort of diverted the attention on the ceasefire call between the warring parties, that's Israel and Hamas now. Where are we on the terms of the ceasefire deal?
The Israelis seem ready to roll in terms of a deal, and Biden very much wants that deal to go ahead. In fact, there was a lot of talk between Biden and Blinken that if they could just get a hostage deal done quickly before an Iranian retaliatory attack, perhaps we could head that off. Unfortunately, that is not the way Hamas is handling things. Hamas has in fact said that they are pausing any talks on a deal until they've appointed a replacement to take over Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated in Iran. They've just done that today. They've just made an announcement today. However, there's talk that all of this regional activity and all of this warmongering is exactly what Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, wants. And this was his dream all along, was to upset the entire region, and that he intends to wait it out, see what these retaliatory attacks look like and how they play out before he's willing to come back to the table.
And who did they name in this announcement that you just talked about?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
The announcement said they've replacing Ismail Haniyeh.
Yes, they did make that announcement just about an hour ago. I'm afraid I don't have the name to hand because I was on my way here when I just read the news. So it's very fresh, but I can't disclose the name right now because it's not on the top of my lips.
Right, and finally, bring us up to speed with the ongoing Israeli raid in the West Bank.
Yes, so this has been a response to an incitement to violence in the West Bank. Many believe that Iran is behind this incitement to violence, hoping to divert Israeli military attention and also hoping to provoke a second intifada to basically force Israel's troops to stretch to the limit on every front possible. And so these were troops, Israeli troops in the West Bank, IDF troops who went in to try to make some arrests of terrorists. There was also believed to be a possible infiltration across Israel's borders. And during these attempted arrests, there were gangs of gunmen who were firing on troops and who were who were trying to throw explosives at troops. And so through 2 drone strikes, 11 terrorists were eliminated and some further arrests were made.
Right, Amy, thank you for your time.
Thank you.